It's time now for the Kill the Can podcast.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Kill the Can podcast. My name is Chewie, and I'm just recording a quick little intro here for what is going to be a quick little episode of the podcast. I initially started out and I wanted to do this weekly, and it is Thursday evening. It's about 10:15 or so when I'm recording this. And as I say in the episode, I did some business travel, and I wanted to just kind of make sure I get this episode out on Thursday. I'm going to try really hard to stick to my once per week cadence here. So one thing that I didn't say in the episode, I was so bummed. Like I said, I was doing some traveling, and I got to the airport almost to security, and I realized that I had a KillTheCan Hall of Fame knife in my backpack. So I had to throw it away. I'm down one knife, but all in all, it was a good trip. So I hope you enjoy the episode, and we'll talk to you soon. Keep at it, quitters.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Kill the Can podcast. I'm your host, Chewie, and I am thrilled that you are joining me this evening. It is Thursday. When I started this podcast, my intent was to make sure, or to try to get an episode out every Thursday. For the first 5 weeks of the podcast, I've been able to do that. And this week, I was doing some traveling for work. And so I left the house on Sunday morning at 4:30 a.m. I had a 6:20 a.m. flight. And I got home late last night, which was Wednesday evening. And I had not had an opportunity to record an episode of the podcast. I haven't had an opportunity to chat with a fellow quitter. And I said, well, you know what, maybe I'll just get an episode out on Friday, or maybe I will get an episode out the following week. Maybe I'll skip a week. But no, I'm in the car right now. I have some time. I got to go get my son from school, from baseball practice. And I said, well, it's going to be a solo episode, but I'm going to try really, really hard to get this episode posted sometime this evening before midnight, so I can say I've got my streak of Thursdays intact. So let's see. What I want to talk about tonight is the concept of cold turkey. Now, cold turkey quitting is one of those things that we really talk about in very high regards at Kill the Can. But I think there's some confusion about what a cold turkey quitter really means. And I'll be honest, maybe I'm part of the cause for this confusion, or maybe I'm the one that's confused. That's entirely possible. So cold turkey quitting is, hey, I'm using dip, I'm using Zyn, I'm using cigarettes or cigars or whatever it is, and I'm going to quit cold turkey. Boom, here's day one. I'm no longer using these products. And we're talking about nicotine products, and so that means we're no longer using any nicotine at all. So that doesn't mean I can go from smoking cigars to cigarettes, or from cigarettes to dip, or from dip to Zyn, or what have you, as long as or nicotine pouches, or whatever it is. So as long as I still have nicotine in my body, it is our opinion that you are still a user. This is where where we kind of differ a little bit from some other organizations out there, or some of the medical community, where we do not, I won't say allow, but we do not allow somebody to be post and roll while they are using nicotine replacement therapy, NRT, whether it's Nicorette, the gum, the patches, those kind of things, because we don't feel that you are really on your true path to freedom from nicotine until you're done using nicotine. In my mind, it sounds kind of silly that I even need to point that out, but you would be shocked how many people come to me or come to Kill the Can and they say, "Oh, I've been quit for, a month now." And I'm like, "Oh man, that's awesome." And then they're like, "Yes, I'm only using, 2 5 milligram patches a day." Now, sorry, I hate to burst your bubble. Congratulations on being free from tobacco, but in my mind, you're not quit, not yet. And so, in order to really truly be free from nicotine, that means all forms of nicotine. So, back to the conversation about cold turkey. So, let's just say for the purposes of this discussion that you want to quit cold turkey. That means all forms of nicotine, including NRT, et cetera, et cetera. Now, here's where I think some of the confusion comes in. In my opinion, if you are using a fake dip product, a product that contains no tobacco and no nicotine, I would still consider you a cold turkey quitter. Because again, in my mind, when we're talking about cold turkey, it's the absence of nicotine, not of the ritual of dipping. There is a lot of products out there, a ton of products, and I talk about it all the time. I'm a huge proponent of fake dips. Again, with the caveat, dips that contain no nicotine and no tobacco. Now, where some of the gray area comes in this, or maybe what some of the confusion comes in here, is there are brands of fake dip products that offer versions of their products that contain nicotine, and some of them that do not. We'll take Black Buffalo as an example, and there's other ones, Fully Loaded, and there's several of other ones. They have a variety of different types of products. Some of them contain nicotine, which I have never tried and will never try. Some of them don't contain nicotine, which I have sampled, I have reviewed, and I consider them some really awesome products. In my mind and in my opinion, if you're using these products, you can still consider yourself a cold turkey quitter. Now, I have gotten the question over the years and recently even about why I would review products by companies that offer products that have nicotine varieties. And my answer to that question has always been, first of all, I'm very clear in every single one of the reviews that I write or any of the products that I would ever recommend to, friends or fellow quitters or what have you. You need to make sure you're getting a product that does not contain nicotine. I am not advocating them. I'm not a fan of them. I'm not a fan of them at all. But some of these companies out there that have these products, their nicotine-free product, are really, really good. They are really, really good fake dip products. And I think it would be, quite frankly, a disservice to the quitting community to not review these products and not recommend these products, because they are some really, really good ones. And in some cases, they're some of the best ones out there, whether it's, hey, what's the best wintergreen fake dip? What's the best mint fake dip? Those kind of things. And so that's why you'll see me talk about products like Fully Loaded, Black Buffalo, some of these other ones that do, unfortunately, in my opinion, offer products that do and don't contain nicotine. Outlaw Dip is another one that in the past has had varieties of their products that contain nicotine. Now Outlaw is in an interesting situation. They were actually caught up in a new piece of legislation signed relatively recently by the Biden administration. And I don't have my notes in front of me, so I will probably misquote it. But essentially what this bill says is there's only a certain number of companies out there that contain, or that are allowed to have products that contain nicotine. And furthermore, there's no longer the ability for new companies to enter the nicotine space and sell new products of nicotine. Now, we could talk about whether I think we should outlaw or ban nicotine. That's kind of a separate conversation, and it's candidly it's a political conversation in this day and age that we live in, where everything is political. I personally don't believe that those products should be banned, because I think that everybody should be able to make their own choices about what they do and don't put into their body. But again, that's another conversation maybe we can have on a future episode of the podcast. But what it has meant specifically for Outlaw, and actually for some of these other companies out there, is they have had to cease operations of producing and selling the varieties of their products that contain nicotine. In the case of Outlaw, I didn't try them until after this had happened, and they've got some really good products, and they've got some products that taste amazing, and they've got some flavors that where there aren't other alternatives of these flavors on the market. So I would urge you to kind of take a look at my review there, and if you haven't, check them out. Then you've heard me mention Black Buffalo. Black Buffalo is a product. They've got their 100. They call it, I think it's 100% ritual, which means they're tobacco-free and nicotine-free, and they're big into the lifestyle of a dipper, right? And so they are really into allowing somebody to continue the habit of dipping while removing the nicotine from that habit. Again, I mentioned Fully Loaded. Fully Loaded is a company that is just down the road from me in Akron, and they also have some outstanding nicotine-free products as well. Now, let's have a conversation briefly about, because I know there are some people that consider the use of these products. They might not call you a cold turkey quitter if you're using these products. Again, my opinion is, if you're using a product that contains, as long as you're not using nicotine in any form, in my mind, you can be a cold turkey quitter. Now, let's talk about the argument that these fake dip products that don't contain nicotine, that don't contain tobacco, they allow you to continue the habit and the ritual, and they don't allow you to fully, quote unquote, heal and break free from your addiction. I'm happy to entertain that conversation. All I can tell you is, for me, that wasn't a problem. I chewed fake dip, or I used fake dip early in my quit for about the first 220, 230 days or so. And when I say I used it, I don't mean I used it a little bit. I used it as much or more than I was using Kodiak or Skoal or whatever it was that I was quitting. I was chewing a can and a half a day of fake dip every day for 220 days. Back in my day, I chewed an absolute ton of Smoky Mountain. Smoky Mountain was what I used primarily as a fake dip. Now, that was 16 years ago, and there are a ton of companies that didn't exist then, and actually some other ones that don't exist now from back then. But anyways, I used Smoky Mountain, and I used it all day, every day, to, like I said, to the tune of a can and a half every single day for the first 200 days of my quit. And then something funny happened. I just didn't reach for it. There just came a day where I no longer needed my fake dip. At 220 days or so, I was well into my quit. I was well into feeling, I won't say comfortable, but I was well into being comfortable with my quit. I had some legs under my quit. I understood that I was going to have some good days and bad days moving forward. The number of good days had started to outweigh the number of bad days when it comes to my quit. And I was well on the path, but I just didn't need it anymore. Now, what I will say is, probably for maybe the next 6 months or so after I stopped using fake dip on a daily basis, I would reach for it now and then. I might reach for it when I was in the yard doing yard work, or snow blowing, or or out at a baseball game, or playing golf, or those kind of things. But again, for me, I just didn't need it anymore. Now, I've heard the argument made that you can't be truly free of your addiction until you are done with not only the tobacco and the nicotine, but also the habit. And again, like I said, I will entertain that discussion, and I won't even necessarily say that the people that say that are wrong. Again, what I will say is that wasn't my personal experience, and so for me, fake dip wasn't a problem. I think, and I've said it so many times now that people are going to make it, say I sound like a broken record. I'm a huge fan of fake dip. I think it's an amazing tool for quitters out there. But again, I also understand that there are some people that think it's too close to the real thing, and that using it will lead them back to the can. And to those people, I would say, you know what? You're right. If it's too close to the real thing and it's actually making your quit harder if you're using fake dip, then I would say I 100% agree with you that you shouldn't use it, because these tools, any kind of quit aid, whether it's a toothpick or sunflower seeds or fake dip, if it's actually making it harder for you to quit, then you absolutely should not use it. So I hope in this very brief episode of the Kill the Can podcast, I have cleared up a little bit of confusion around this concept of cold turkey, at least my thoughts on the concept of cold turkey. And again, this is just one man's opinion, so feel free to reach out, leave a comment wherever you're listening to this podcast. Let me know if you agree with me. Let me know if you think I'm off the wall. That's fine too. So hey, thanks for tuning in. Hopefully I'll go ahead and I'll get this podcast uploaded before midnight tonight, and we'll keep our streak of Thursdays going. And hopefully next week I'll be back with a longer episode of the Kill the Can podcast, quite possibly with a guest. Until then, stay quitters. I'll talk to you soon.
Join us again next time for another edition of the Kill the Can podcast.